You know, back when I was in high school, there was a Magic card that looked so epic, so cool, so radical that I tried desperately to build a deck around it. No, it wasn't Elder Landworm. Well, okay, I did also try and build a deck to try and win with Elder Landworm, but that's not the card I'm talking about today. Today, I'm thinking of Leviathan. Just look at this epic art by Mark Tadine. This is the Magic artist who went on to illustrate Emrakul and so many other amazing Magic card arts. But here it was back in the 90s. I was in high school and look at that art, look at that creature, look at that stat line. OMG. But now just look at that rules text. I mean, it's a 10/10 trample, but Leviathan comes into play tapped and does not untap as normal during your untap phase. Sacrifice 2 islands, not 1 but 2 islands during your upkeep phase to untap Leviathan. And then Leviathan may not attack unless you sacrifice 2 islands during your attack. Is this card good? Hell no, it's dumb, but I love it just the same. So what did high school me try to do to make Leviathan work? Why, find even dumber cards to play alongside it. What other blue creatures go in a Leviathan deck? Enter Island Fish Jasconis. 7 mana for a 6/8. Summon Island Fish. Literally, that's its creature type, Island Fish. I wish it tapped for blue mana. Does not untap during your untap phase. Cannot attack if defending player controls no islands. And if at any time you control no islands, bury Island Fish Jasconis. I can spend triple blue to untap Island Fish, but I can use that ability only during my upkeep. Oh, and I didn't have the Arabian Nights one in high school either. I had the revised edition one with the white border. There we go, white border it. I think I actually had better luck with Island Fish Jasconis than with Leviathan, but who could say? The 90s were a long time ago, and even then, these cards were dumb as a bag of hammers. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with dumb old Magic cards. In fact, I think there's something beautiful about them. Earlier this year, I released a video about the stupidest cards in Magic history. You know, Magic the Gathering is the best game of all time, with a rich 30-year history filled with over 20,000 unique game pieces, and many of these game pieces are works of art, brilliant expressions of game design that are fun, evocative, and often quite powerful. But they can't all be winners, no sir. Some of them are actually quite hilarious losers. There are a lot of cards in Magic history that aren't just bad, they're utterly ridiculous. This was especially true in the early days of Magic, when its designers were still getting a feel for what each color was capable of, what a given card type should do, how large creatures could be, and how to balance card effects with potential drawbacks. Card design knobs are easy to turn but hard to get right. I know I certainly couldn't do it. There are so many of these silly, stupid, flat-out dumb cards from the early days of Magic that I couldn't come close to talking about all of them in just one video, so I decided to make another one. Now I want to be clear, this is not meant as a negative video because I genuinely have a deep affection for these dumb old cards, and for the game as a whole. I'm dating myself here, but these are cards that came out around the time I was first falling in love with Magic the Gathering. These cards? They're my childhood. And just like looking at an old picture of yourself, it's nice to look back at choices made in the 90s, scratch your head, laugh a little, and appreciate how far we've come. So we're focusing on old cards today, old dumb Magic cards. Which is the dumbest and just how dumb is dumb? Well, prepare yourself as we take a look. Oh, and by the way, if you're interested in cool present-day Magic the Gathering cards, I'm giving away 10, that's right, 10 Commander decks on my next Whatnot stream. Just tune in this Thursday, March 20th at 3 p.m. Pacific, and you might walk away. I know this is only 2, there's 8 more. There's 8 more, I'm giving away 10. 2 of them are Modern Horizons ones. The other 8, it's whatever's in the closet, but they're going from me to you, thanks to Whatnot. Whatnot is just if Twitch and eBay had a baby. People are able to live stream their stores and items, offering them either at auctions or buy it now prices. I keep a lot of cool stuff in my store, from magic products to signed playmats, deck boxes, and other cool accessories you might want to check out. And I love giving things away, like this $15 credit that you get to spend on anything on Whatnot when you create a new account. So yeah, maybe you'll end up with one of these 10 Commander decks that I'm giving away on that stream, and all of you who create a new account get $15 to spend on anything and Whatnot in my store or anyone's. So come check it out this next Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific. We're gonna hang out, have fun, and give away awesome magic products. I hope to see you there, and thank you Whatnot for sponsoring this video. First up, I want to talk about an honorable mention, a card that almost makes sense. I mean, it's not a good card, it's a dumb card, but you can at least understand the designer's thought process with it. Then you get to the last line of text, and suddenly, nothing about this card makes any sense at all. Freyalise Charm, an enchantment from Ice Age that costs double green, and has 2 activated abilities that also cost double green. The first says, whenever any opponent successfully casts a black spell, draw a card. Use this ability only once each time a black spell is cast. It's interesting to note that this does specifically say any opponent, which means they were designing for Commander even way back in Ice Age, right? The second ability allows you to pay double green to, what? Return Freyalise Charm to its owner's hand. I'm sorry, what? Why give this card the ability to bounce itself? To save it from enchantment removal? It's a hate piece for black decks. Enchantment removal was famously out of the color pie for black in the early days of Magic history. So you might think, okay, but 2 color decks were a thing, so maybe a black deck's secondary color could remove this card. But the only 2 colors that could remove enchantments back then were in white and green, black's enemy colors. In 1995, enemy color pairs were hardly a thing. You were not seeing a ton of Orzhov or Golgari decks running around. They didn't even have the terms Orzhov or Golgari back then. So what? Was this ability just included so you could save the enchantment from Nevinyrro's Disc? Is that it? Why is that necessary? Why was it so important that your anti-black card draw engine be saved from Nevinyrro's Disc? Oh, maybe it's this. There's an opposing card also from Ice Age that does what Freyalise's Charm does, but in reverse. For double black, Leshrack's Sigil thought seizes your opponent after they cast a green spell and can be bounced to your hand also for double black. But that's so much better than what Freyalise's Charm does. And it makes way more sense that your anti-green card would need to be saved from enchantment removal. I mean, it's still stupid, but at least green actually had disenchant effects. I do love the idea of putting a self-bounce ability on random permanents. Like, hey, here's all this stuff this card does, and also you can bounce it back to your hand if you want. Just wanted to give you that option. Also, this is a pretty small thing to bring up, but Freyalise's Charm, it's not a charm. In fact, out of all 56 cards in Magic's history whose name is blank charm, Freyalise's Charm is the only one that doesn't have the traditional charm template. Weird card. The next card is the literal perfect card for Magic players who need to gain some life but don't want to deal any damage. Delif's Cone, a 0-mana artifact from Fallen Empires that taps and sacks to target a creature. When that creature attacks this turn and is not blocked, you may choose to gain life equal to its power. If you do, it assigns no combat damage this turn. Awesome, great use of a card. It's so funny to look at this card next to, say, Spirit Link, which was printed the same year. Both cards make an attacking creature gain you life. Both do get blown out by removal, but one of them does it repeatedly while still dealing damage, and the other is Delif's Cone. There's a lot to ironically love about this card, but one of my personal favorites is that you have to use it before you know if your creature will get to attack, let alone not be blocked. Like, if this was templated to say, tap, sacrifice Delif's Cone, target unblocked creature you control deals no combat damage this turn, you gain life equal to its power, it would still be a bad card, but at least you'd have a better chance of actually gaining the life you so desperately want to gain. I also love that you have to sacrifice this in order to use it. Now, don't get me wrong, it would still be a dumb, terrible card if you could do it every turn, but nope, you can't even do that. You only get to take one single turn off from dealing damage to gain some life. There are 40 artifacts in Magic's history with a mana cost of 0. Many of them powerful. In fact, many of them are among the 9 most broken cards in the game. But Delif's Cone? Well, it might be the worst. Keep in mind, I said might be because there might be another 0 mana artifact on this list that is, believe it or not, dumber than Delif's Cone. It might be the very next card that I'm going to talk about. Okay, if you thought Delif's Cone was a dumb old Magic card, you're not gonna believe this next one. Take a good look at Gustha's Scepter. 0 mana effect for an artifact from Alliances that lets you tap it to exile a card from your hand face down. You get to look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You can also tap the Scepter to return a card you own exiled with this artifact to your hand. And oh, if you lose control of the Scepter, either because someone steals it or because it gets destroyed, all the cards you exiled with it go to the graveyard. Are you freaking frackin' kidding me with this? So what, you can tap this to exile a card from your hand, and then on a future turn, you can tap it to put a card you exiled back into your hand? And if the Scepter ever gets messed with at any point during this process, then all the cards still exiled by the Scepter are gone forever? Who would run this? Why would you run this? What is the point? Is this to protect cards in your hand from discard effects? If so, that's a really bad way to do it. Maybe this card just exists to send cards in your hand on fun little journeys. Like, hey buddy, I'm gonna send you into exile for a bit now. Don't worry, I'll bring you right back on my next turn. Unless I decide to send some other card into exile with you for some reason. I don't know, this Scepter is the kind of card you run if you don't care about winning, but you just love taking game actions. I think it's like a fidget spinner, but for is-it mages, right? I don't know, this card is really dumb. Coming up next, you know how everyone clowns on Healing Salve for being from the same boon cycle as Ancestral Recall? Like, it perfectly encapsulates how much worse white was than blue when Magic the Gathering started. Like, you know, gain a couple life, draw some cards, it's the same deal, right? Well, given that context, the next card on this list is a bit on the nose. Fasting. 1 white mana for an enchantment from the dark that reads, you may choose to skip your draw phase to gain 2 life. If you draw a card for any reason, destroy Fasting. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a hunger counter on the enchantment. Then if it has 5 or more hunger counters on it, destroy it. This card is literally you choosing to gain life instead of drawing cards, and it's even worse than Healing Salve. That's right, worse than Healing Salve. It's unbelievably bad. Effectively, you skip your turn in order to gain 2 life. 2 life, that's it! Skipping your draw step to negate an attack from a single grizzly bear. I love the flavor of fasting, no pun intended. I mean, your library represents knowledge, right? That's why all the mill cards are about losing your mind, and all the card draw spells are about learning. Meanwhile, gaining life in Magic is often associated with food and eating. I bet back in the day there was at least one person who forced their opponent to destroy their own fasting by targeting them with an Ancestral Recall. I imagine it was like staging an intervention for them. Snap out of it, man! Drawing cards is a good thing. We love you. Okay, we're on to the last 2 cards on this dumb list. And number 2 is a card that a lot of you suggested in the comments of our last video. And I agree, it's extremely dumb. It's not the dumbest card on this list. We'll get to that in just a moment, but it absolutely is very stupid. That's right, the second dumbest card on our list is Wood Elemental, though I know it is many of your first. I mean, just look at this thing. It looks so mad that I'm about to roast him, but you'd think you'd be used to it by now. That's because Wood Elemental is a 4-mana green elemental creature from Legends. His power and toughness are stars. Why? Well, because in order to have Wood Elemental have any power and toughness, you'll need to sacrifice a bunch of lands when it enters play. Oh, and don't try to sacrifice the lands you use to cast Wood Elemental. No. You have to sacrifice untapped forests. They have to be untapped. Of all the terrible creatures in Magic history, this one is particularly hilarious. Even the 3 and a green mana cost isn't accurate because the forests you sacrifice have to be untapped. They have to be untapped, oh my gosh. So it essentially costs 3 and a green plus green for each forest that you're prepared to sacrifice to him to give him any power and toughness whatsoever. Of course, even that's not entirely true. A version of Wood Elemental with a mana cost of X3G, where its power and toughness was equal to X and you could only spend green mana on X, as awful as that would certainly be, would still be an improvement on this card. You have to sacrifice the forests. I can't get over that. Sacrifice untapped forests to buff your 4-mana creature's power and toughness. It doesn't even have reach or trample or something. No keywords, no abilities. It's a vanilla creature, and it's not even a particularly big one. Oh my god, old Magic was the best, wasn't it? Okay, we're on to the final card. A card even dumber than Wood Elemental. Yes, it's true. Yes, it's possible. Honestly, I think this card might not only be the stupidest card I'll talk about in this video, but I think it's even dumber than any of the cards I discussed in my first video. Are you ready for this? Behold, the dumb card to end all dumb cards. Sorrow's Path, a non-basic land from the dark that doesn't tap for mana. As a side note, I love how obsessed Magic designers were with making lands that didn't tap for mana back in the 90s. Tabernacle, Glacial Chasm, Maze of Ith. There were so many. But anyway, back to Stupid's Path. I'm sorry, I mean Sorrow's Path. Tap to exchange 2 of opponent's blocking creatures. This exchange may not cause an illegal block. Sorrow's Path does 2 damage to you, and 2 damage to each creature you control whenever it is tapped. This card isn't just bad, it's dumb. Idiotic design, stupid effect, just an utterly absurd invention. It's dumb to the point that I cannot believe anyone actually designed it, but someone did design it, and I hope one day I could meet this person and maybe buy them a drink, because as dumb as it is, it's a work of art. I say this with all the love in my heart. This design is so incredibly dumb. It's just bad. This is a bad card. It's weird, it's clunky, and best of all, it's all face up. You had to play it as a land drop in order to use it, so you don't even get to surprise your opponent post blockers when you activate it. And it's just so dumb that it doesn't just deal 2 damage to you on activation, but also to all of your creatures. You can't even use this card if your creatures have 2 toughness, because it'll just kill them all. I'm trying to imagine any scenario where this card would be useful, but I'm coming up blank. Any unfavorable block you get to force your opponent's creatures into is ruined by the fact that the creatures they're blocking with will all take 2 damage, so they're unlikely to survive through the new blocks anyway. I would do anything to have been in the room when this card was pitched. What was said about it? How was it justified? What was the reaction of the other game designers in the room? Was there thunderous applause or stunned silence? I simply have to know. Both Sorrow's Path and Wood Elemental are on the reserve list. And perhaps in this instance, these cards are on the reserve list not because of their broken power level like the Power 9, but simply to ensure they never again get reprinted into a Magic set. We are being protected, yes, from Sorrow's Path and Wood Elemental and Baron Sengir? Wait, Baron's on the reserve list too? Really? Well, that just goes to show that if there's one thing dumber than all of these cards, it's the reserve list. But unlike the cards I have covered in this video and my last video, I have no loving affection for the reserve list. And along those lines, be sure to watch my video all about how the reserve list is a lie. If you have not already done so, it's linked here. Just click the I and in this video's description. And now I want to hear from you. What do you think are some of the dumbest cards in Magic history, or the stupidest? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, I'm giving away 10, there's 10 Commander decks on my next Whatnot stream this Thursday, March 20th at 3 p.m. Pacific. There's 10 of them. One's on the floor, 8 are in the closet, but all are going out from me to you for free anywhere in the world thanks to Whatnot. Not only that, but I'm giving out a $15 credit for you to spend on anything you want on Whatnot, from Magic products and accessories. You want to buy packs, you want to buy singles, you want to buy Commander decks, you get $15 to spend however you want when you create a new account by going to www.whatnot.com/invite/Tolarian College. You get that $15 credit, and maybe, just maybe, you will walk away with one of the 10 Commander decks I'm giving away, plus a few extra surprises this Thursday, March 20th at 3 p.m. Pacific. I hope very much to see you there, and thank you Whatnot for sponsoring this video.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
What's up? It's Shuffle Up and Play with decks that Tomer has built for us. Tomer built the entire pod for how much money, Tomer?
$25 each, so total $100.
Do you notice how he built the decks for all of us? And
I did notice that.
Did not rig it.
It looks kind of sus, Tomer.
This isn't petty prof anymore. It's proper play prof. All the P.
So much pee-pee.
So much PP.
He's showing weakness. Get him.
You've played your last shambling guest.
Because it's Commander, yeah.
Yes, correct.
That's am I going to win next turn type face.
Oh, God, no. You didn't build it that good.
He just called you a zoomer. You gonna take that?
Because of that, I'm gonna swing at prof.